This week in Warcraft, character models done at only 25%. 10-man and 25-man raiding achievements will only be separated when absolutely necessary to prevent achievement bloat. Connected realms will have between average and full server population. And the Hearthstone beta went live this week and live streamers are already addicted to it. While at the same time, it has been announced that the WoW TCG will no longer be extended. I'm your host, Mezzy, and welcome to WoW Weekly. So, hi, I'm Mezzy, or Valentine. Welcome to a new podcast called WoW Weekly, wherein we'll discuss the weekly news as well as certain discussion points related to World of Warcraft. I'll be joined, hopefully each week, by different hosts. This week I'm first joined by Raoul, also known as LJ. Welcome, LJ.
Hello there.
Why don't you tell a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Raoul LJ Cox. LJ standing for Eljon Silver, my main character, which is a paladin. Playing him for, what, now? 7, 8 years, I think? Almost from the start of World of Warcraft. And been a hardcore raider since now. Since a few weeks, I've turned it down a notch. And just playing the game, just trying to enjoy it as much as possible.
Okay, great. My other host this week is Mario, also known as Milne. Welcome, Milne.
Hello, guys.
Why won't you tell a bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. I started playing WoW a few years now. I actually was mid towards the end of the Classic. Warlock is my preferred class. Played initially very casual, but then I really got into the game. Hopefully managed to get into the hardcore rating as quickly as I could once I really got to know the game. And I played very heavily as a hardcore raider up until I got a chance to work for Blizzard a few years ago. And unfortunately back then I had to cut down my raiding schedule, but yeah, still trying to enjoy the game as much as possible.
Okay, cool. So the way we're going to do this podcast is we're first going to discuss some things that have happened or been said in the last week, mainly by developers. And after that, after a quick commercial break, we'll come back and have a main discussion point. So, first off, there have been a lot of interviews this week, and especially as we're getting closer to patch 5.4, we're also starting to get some new information about possible development changes as we head towards the next expansion. So, let's start with the first item. We had a bit conflicting news in interviews this week about how the legendary item system is going to move on. Corey Stockton said in an interview that the developers were quite happy with the system and they were probably going to continue with it. However, Legendary, I think it was Legendary, Greg Street said that in the future legendary weapons will likely be distributed similar toward like the old legendary weapons and less like the Cataclysm legendary weapons. So we could be looking at rare drops again. So what do you think about that, Milne?
I'm really curious to know exactly how they plan to do this. One of Blizzard's motto was to never go back to previous mechanics, or at least to try and be as different as they can. Although there are some mechanics or past ways of doing things that I really think that we should go back to. And the first legendaries are a prime example. That was an involvement of a lot of some different grinding, some grinding on dungeons, some grinding on raids, but the most important thing was the character had to really be involved in his own quests and maximizing everything that the character could to get the item, ultimately to get legendary. Then, for instance, I had to maximize his main profession, and had to have a profession. So basically, it was really taking out all the character skills and aptitudes to maximum to be able to do that. And that also involved getting guildmates or friends into completing dungeon and quests and long quests and raids. I'd love to see that again. So I'm really curious to know how they plan to do that for the future items.
So with maximizing, you mean like Sulfuras, for example, in Classic, because...
Exactly. Sulfuras or Thunder Fury. Those are the prime examples of those felt legendary as well. Not only to those who were doing the quests to obtain the weapon themselves, but those who participated in the quest the quest chain. It felt as it was something really, really worth going for, or at least to help someone to achieve that goal, which was, legendary.
Yeah. LJ, how do you think the current legendary chain for the cloak has gone so far?
I'll try to keep it mild because I have pretty strong feelings about it, but I just think it's wrong how to do it. It's not a legendary anymore. It's not worth the ultimate orange name it has because everybody from hardcore raiders to their moms basically can get it if they just play a little. They play it because if you can get items from even looking for raid, that doesn't make it a legendary item. Sure, it'll have higher stats and higher item level than most items, and all the other items basically. But still, it legendary has a certain weight to it. You can't just give that kind of items to everybody and then call it legendary. You have to actually earn it, and you have to actually, like Milne said, you have to have the feeling. Everybody has to have the feeling that they actually did something for it. Now it's just complete this quest, gather 10 of these and 10 of these, then go back to Raytheon, and then go do the next set of quests, which you can do in looking for raid. I mean, of course, it takes longer than the normal quest, but it's still not legendary. It's just an item with a higher item level.
Yeah, legendary to me, it has to have the feeling of uniqueness or some sort of uniqueness that, even though you may do, some quests with other people, but still feels unique and not easily obtainable unless you really worked, hard to get to the next step. And once you reach the next step, you have to work hard to get, again to the next step, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said before, with maximizing your professions and such, no real effort has to be taken like back in the day to get the items or do something special for the for the legendary. It's just basically all the other quests in World of Warcraft. You get a couple of items, and you complete the quest, and you get something for it. That's basically, it's not legendary. It's too casual, in my opinion.
Okay, but if we go to the Burning Crusade, for example, all you had to do for legendary was just wait for it to drop. It was RNG, and in Classic as well. Of course, you had to do some profession stuff, etc., but you also just had to wait for the items to drop. So in that sense, wouldn't the legendary, the meaning to legendary just be extremely rare and hope that you get lucky that it will drop?
Well, I agree with what they did with. I assume you're referring to the bow. Legendary.
The bow or the warglaives.
The warglaives as well. That I agree that isn't great as well. But the way you had to get there first, like for to get actually kills on Illidan, was way harder than how to get kills nowadays. You didn't have looking for raid back then, so you didn't. You couldn't get them easily. But still, I don't agree how they did it there. I mean, it was still it's still a chance that you have, and you have to actually work for your legendaries. I feel like what was the mace called? Valanir.
Valanir, yeah.
In Ulduar and Thunder Fury and Handle Sulfuras. Those are the ways to get legendaries, in my opinion.
Right. So I agree with you guys. We should really look for the way to get legendary would be a combination of luck for drops and progressing through the harder content, as well as a bit of luck so with the RNG and professions having to really grind something out for you to get it, and not on a schedule like in Cataclysm, so many weeks before I get my legendary staff.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the Warcraft example, I think that I respect the way they did the legendary on that one. The reason is because back at the time, and to many, Black Temple and Illidan was one of the best raids that were ever existed. You know, not only because the mechanics were so good, because it was so varied, and you know, to find the skilled people to complete each boss and to continue and to progress, etc. I think that, you know, yeah, it could be. It was a nice reward for even for a raid, you know, to see that item dropping, because obviously first you still had to beat Illidan in order for you to get that weapon. Obviously nowadays, because it's a long past item, it doesn't have that kick effect, doesn't have that special effect to have that legendary. But still, to my view, I think it's, if I see someone with the Terragosa staff, and if I see someone with the Black Temple Warglaives main hand weapon, I still would feel more. I would still feel that extra respect to the Warglaive because of, you know, what it meant back then. And it was difficult in its own way. It was an achievement in its own way. It was a coming together of 24 people to make one person to take that item with them. And it's not a legendary in terms of, you know, grinding or maximizing your own stats to be able to obtain it. There still was an effort of 24 other people to beat the most difficult boss of any of the expansions that we had so far to obtain a legendary item. But still, I think that makes a difference, to my opinion.
Okay, that's cool. I think we have a general consensus of how at least how us three would like to see legendaries move on in the future. So moving on, another interview from WoW Insider, Tom Chilton and Corey Stockton talked about the item squish. And there's a pretty good chance that we'll see that happen next expansion. It's currently being tested as well on every internal build of the next expansion of World of Warcraft. And that's especially because they're getting close to the point where the code just can't compile the huge numbers that we're getting because of the inflation of item level and our power as a character. I personally think it's great. I kind of would have liked to see the item squish already in Pandaria, but I'm glad they're finally going to do it. Well, hopefully, it's likely that they're going to do it the next expansion. Or do you guys rather see the 1 mega damage solution? Mario or Milne?
It's a good question, really. I would wait and see exactly how they. I'd much rather have something to say once I get the experience of that. It's hard to say. I mean, for me, it's difficult to try and imagine a world in which I would say yes or no to something like that. I think I just have to reserve my opinion and see and try it and see how Blizzard comes up with that.
Okay, so would they suddenly decide to go with mega damage? You wouldn't feel silly getting 100 mega damage crits.
It's not that. It's just because, I mean, again, I mean, if we look, let's pick any class, and if we try and imagine the progress or how every class evolved. Years ago, we would have imagined, okay, maybe it's not the most brilliant idea to have hunters have so much damage, so much crowd control. And nowadays, you wouldn't imagine a hunter to not be able to use crowd control in any fights, may it be on just questing or maybe PvP or even PvE. it's hard to put or to say something like 100%. I mean, would I like to see it? I'm not too sure. I mean, I like my class. I think that, throughout the years, I've always felt that Warlock was one of the less tweaked classes compared to others, like Warriors, for instance. I mean, every single patch or every single bug fix or even minor patch or big patch. I mean, you have an endless array of fixes or improvements they're doing on Warriors, for instance. So I don't know. I don't have a clear vision or a clear opinion on would I like to or wouldn't I like to at this moment.
Okay. And LJ? Are you still with us?
Yeah, sorry, was away there for a moment, but yeah, I partly agree with Mill on that. Of course, with WoW you have to wait. With Blizzard you have to wait till how they actually exact it and how they are going to make it work. Because Blizzard has been known to say A, but eventually do B or C even, and it won't work then at the way they want it to, or it's working as intended, quote unquote. But I'm leaning towards to seeing it though, because at the moment the items, items and the numbers and everything is getting a bit crazy. I mean, you have people like a warlock, another warlock I knew. He showed me when he did all his what is it called, cooldowns and such. He had over 1.5 million health or something like that. It was really insane. I mean, I hope that's working as intended, but it's just a bit weird to see that. While back in Classic, the most health you could have was 8k, I believe. That was like the top end players. We've gone a long way from that, of course, but it's just I'd probably say yes to a item squish being done well, of course, because we can't. It would be a shame if that meant a nerf to everything. That would just I just have to see how it happens.
Of course. They do want to make sure that you'll still be able to solo content just as well as now, so hopefully they'll do their job correctly and work on that for it to work out well.
Yes.
So the next subject can be a bit controversial between 10 and 25 man guilds. Tom Chilton recently said that they feel the only way currently they can work on the popularity of 25 man guilds is having the extra Thunderforged and soon Warforged items drop more in 25 man. How should Blizzard go on making sure that 25 man guilds and raids get the correct incentives for 25 man raiding to still be relevant?
I'll go first on this one then. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's a good start, but I don't think it's still enough because at the moment we still see the trend of decreasing 25-man raiding guilds. And being a 25-man raider myself originally, I think it's a shame. My as well as Messi knows, our guild, Mil knows, our guild suffered because of it. It eventually stopped raiding 25-man because it's just the competition isn't fair at the moment between 10-man and 25-man. There's so much more logistics happening in 25-man. I think Thunderforged or a Warforged dropping more, or maybe even only in 25-man, is a really good incentive. But I think they need to solve it more than just give us more prizes. They have to actually go behind the problem and see what they can do about it in a whole, and not just, oh, here you have extra shiny loots. Now everybody wants to do it more. I think there has to happen more to actually make people want to do 25-man raiding.
Okay. Well, looking at patch 5.4, one of the incentives, at least I feel they're adding, is there's going to be a difference between 10-man realm first and 25-man realm first, which is something I've been advocating for a few years now. So I'm really glad, and I'm hoping that gives people looking to start a new guild an extra incentive to think, well, there are currently only a few 25-man guilds on my realm, so if I would start a new 25-man guild, we could have a real shot at that 25-man realm first achievement. So I'm glad they're bringing Warforged items soon then as well, as a bit of an extra incentive still, but also the achievements. I think especially a realm first achievement can be a real incentive to just go for it, to just take the risk, have the extra trouble with recruitment and just in-raid logistics, and hopefully it will have a positive effect on 25-man rating. How do you feel about this, Mil?
Well, I agree on some of the comments that both you and LJ have mentioned. See, let's go back to the basic. Let's go back to how WoW popularity and how WoW was so good a few years back when the first few when Classic and the first expansion came about. If we go back to raids like Grove or McTheridan, I mean that was it. It was a 25-man raid. There was no 10 men. There was no way to change that. And it was part of the lore. It was part of the progress of raiding. It was part of the progress of the content of that expansion. So incentives are always good, but incentives also incentive or progress or should be closely tied to some sort of difficulty, some sort of obstacle that people for people to overcome. They need to do whatever necessary for whatever that obstacle is to overcome. So 25-man raids, like at the very early stage, 40-man raids were considered, those who did raid. Unfortunately, I didn't raid back then. But those who did raid, they look back with very fond memories. They say they were the best times. When 40-man raids were the best raids by far compared to 25-men. And obviously, those who raided 25-men in a hardcore basis, they would say 25-men is a lot better than 10-men, so on and so forth. The key here is, I think that one of the mistakes that not only Blizzard may have done, but also the community has done, is to think of rating purely on the items that you can get or the loot you're able to roll on. And I think that's wrong. I think the incentive could be mount or the achievement or the difficulty itself, to be able to show to everyone else in the realm that you are the best, or you are you're better than others, because let's face it, this game is competitive and there's nothing wrong with being competitive. So I think that the incentive, for me at least, will be to not only be a gear based or drop based. It should be either title or the loot, sure, of course, yeah, but maybe something special you can get, maybe a special item you can craft, maybe a mount as well that can work too, a special vanity item, and special items as well that can work. But most importantly is the fact that you are there to show that you have overcome the complexity of the mechanics of one particular boss, which should be by far more difficult than 10 men's. I think that the complexity of the fight itself, the idea of getting people to do something, they only be able to do it on 25 men. That's one big incentive that really should be enough to get players involved again.
So what you're saying is a more Wrath of the Lich King style way of raiding, having 25 MB on a higher difficulty than 10 man.
For me, the peak of raiding was like halfway through Burning Crusade and Lich King. That's for me is the high peak of raiding, because it was the transition of how they evolved from one expansion to the other was an improvement, was like a perfection of what was good of the previous one, and how the logistics improved on the Wrath of the Lich King.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree that for me that was the high point as well. I mean, like more towards the end of Lich King, or Wrath of the Lich King, you could just feel that 10 man was overtaking 25 man in certain things. But before that, 25 man was just the way to go with raiding. To be honest, 10 man was seen as the more casual, if I can say that correctly, way of raiding. It's just more and more. I know Blizzard has tried to correct this, but more and more it just feels like that nowadays it's that distinction isn't there that much anymore. 25 man still is harder, but it's just not the way to go. Even though the top guilds are still 25 man guilds, it's still 10-man guilds are popping up like mushrooms in rainy weather at the moment. It's just insane, and everybody just sees that how much the differences aren't that big. So 10-man is just easier and better way to go for new guilds.
Yeah.
And to stretch, sorry, just one thing, just to stretch this conversation even further, and in terms of improving the game overall, one of the big problems that we have in a loot-based raiding style is the fact that we may have, not only for guilds, okay, not so much for guilds, but even like for those who are casual, if we kind of get away from the concept of having loot-based raids, and instead get more involvement of your own professions. I mean, we're just like it seems that we have professions, but they're not really important nowadays. I'm back in Classic. I remember that I really had to grind for months and months to gather all the materials I needed to craft Robe of the Void, which was the best robe for Warlocks at the time. And you had to raid back then to obtain some of the materials needed to craft that item. So I think that if we created some raids nowadays that instead of looting would be Dragon Scale or Saber Tooth or something like that from one of these bosses, and the items that you need, it will drop normally at a very modest quantity and spread amongst the players equally, then I think that could also tone down the potential issue of ninja loots or loot fights or disagreements, or because I remember there were times that even guilds actually were torn apart because of loot discrepancies and loot issues. And I think if we get our professions to stand out more, I think that could be again an extra incentive, a simultaneous incentive for guilds, both 10 and 25.
Okay, well, one thing I wanted to add, and we'll be talking about this a bit later on as well, is that we now have LFR, and also, starting next patch, we'll have flex rating. And flex rating is supposed to be a new type of raid setting to fill in where 10-man raids in the earlier days really filled a role, which was for more casual friends and family type raiding. So wouldn't we kind of already have the distinction now between the normal heroic raids and flex raiding, with one being harder than the other?
Silence.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest. I think we first have to see how that works out with a lot of things. I mean, with the patch, a lot of things are going to change, and I'm just waiting on that one. I don't dare say something about the flex rating at the moment. See how that just pans out. I'm hoping it'll work out a bit better than how it is going now, but you just never know.
All right.
I may dare to say something. I am not. I would say that I'm 70% against flex rates. Obviously, I don't know. I don't have that much information about to completely chastise it 100%. But I think that leaving things way too unstructured, and by unstructured I mean before there was the concept of 10-man raids and 25 men. That was the structure that worked. There was an issue about which one of these was more important, but then again, that was the structure. To leave a raid, or if I may call it this way, to create an unstructured raid where pretty much any number can do, I think that again is really taking out the value of raiding, to take out the value of getting the communities together, getting guilds to go back to the core values of raiding, to get together on a few nights, maximize all you can, and really maximize your character, to put all the effort you can to make sure that your character is at its best in professions, in gear, and reputation, and this is like to me, this will translate to, well, let's just do what we can type of rate. That's what it feels to me, the flex rates. And I can see the logistics, I can see the mechanics, I can see the infrastructure behind it, which is pretty amazing, I'm sure. But I think that they should have, in my opinion, they should have spent that time, that effort, and that investment on, again, just the gameplay instead of the convenience of creating gameplay.
Okay. Well, let's move on for now. Tom Chilton recently also spoke about the daily quests. And one of the things he said was that the daily quest cap removal made it feel mandatory for players to do them all. But then I'm thinking, how were they not expecting that, though? It's why they have such caps to begin with in the first place, such as the weekly valor point cap, and I believe the conquest point cap. So why would it then? So why wouldn't they have foreseen that anyway? Would you guys like to see them back in the future? So the daily quest cap, or would you like to see daily quests removed and have more quests like the weekly quests along the line of the battlefield barons, in which you do a task which takes perhaps an hour, and then you get 200 valor points, as it was with battlefield barons. And if we would get rid of the daily quests, how would you progress reputation? If not through dailies, would you go back to the tabards or something else? Mill, would you like to comment first?
I think daily quests are something good for us to keep. Maybe not emphasize or not even put some sort of heavy mandatory necessities of doing them. I think that daily quests can also help those hardcore raiders to take a break, maybe, so from like constant or mandatory grinding that you probably have to do anyways with a character for missions, for other reputations, or for professions, or for even the auction house play. Daily quests are good to, you know, put your mind at ease or relax a little bit. I remember there were times I was doing some daily quests, and you know that actually relaxed and took my, you know, the stress off me for a bit. Although when I hear mandatory or something in any way that makes me think that I have to do something mandatory, that initially automatically just takes away the fun factor for me. I think that they should just allow the daily quest to be something extra that you can do in your own time to obtain or increase or compensate, okay, for some reputation or for some extra items or for something minor that, you know, just compensates instead of putting an extra burden on you besides the many things that you already have to do in the game.
All right, LJ?
Yeah, I agree. I also don't see a future in World of Warcraft without daily quests. Maybe I'm not sure about the cap. That's just how they do the daily quests, because the quests for a hardcore raider, you're gonna have to do them anyways. If you have to, if it's for rep gear, or maybe even vanity items, they don't have to do them, but a lot of people will do them because of the rewards. But it's just. I like how they did Battlefield Barons. I really did. It's really a nice way to get valor points. I think if they do it more like that, I would like to see that. But it's just they have to tackle the problem of the quest itself, because if you're going to do the same quests over and over again for, like in Mr. Pandaria, for 1 or 2 months, like Milton said, at first it was relaxing, but after a while you log on with a heavy heart every time, more so every time. At least it wasn't the case for me. I mean, it's just how did they not expect everybody to do every single daily quest out there when they even removed the cap? It's just illogical that they did not see that coming. It was just they really made Mob, which is a fairly good expansion so far. They made it into a grind fest the first couple of months, which I hope not to see ever again. Not that bad, at least. But I can't see weekly or daily quests leaving the game as it is. It's it's not bad in a way, but if they keep on doing it like it is, they will make it into something bad. If you want to say it like that.
Yeah, if I can just add something as well, which I didn't mention, was the cap. I think I'm not too I'm really not too sure about the cap. I think that's one concept that restricting it's an idea is a concept that I don't think there's anything positive attached to it. I think that players they should be able to do as much as they want to do. I can understand the fact that it can become a problem, especially with competitive rating and the guilds, going for the top. But that's the very nature of competitiveness. If people become the best because they put a lot more effort in than anyone else. So why shouldn't they do, and why should they be forced to be at the same level? Because that's just going against the idea of being top realm or top region or top server. That's just, I don't get that. So I would say remove the cap because I don't like that idea, or increase the cap for something a lot more flexible and where people may say, okay, I think that I may have done whatever I wanted to do this week, and I just do something else with my time. But that's their choice and not imposed by Blizzard. When a company starts to making choices for the players, I think that's when it starts, really to, become wrong thing to do.
Okay,
I agree. Just especially in an MMO, you need to have players, let them have their freedom and make decisions for themselves, be it bad or good.
Okay, well, this is interesting because I actually fully disagree with you guys on the cap. I think such a cap is actually quite good to protect the players from themselves. And maybe it'll spawn a bit of hate towards Blizzard, but I think it would be hate that they should happily receive, because look at the example, the beginning of Mist of Pandaria, the first week. They decided against releasing the raids in the first week to already protect the players from absolutely having to level the first 24 hours so that they could start raiding on the second or third day of Mist of Pandaria. And that's just, in my opinion, a great way to protect the players from themselves, because players will want to get everything done as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, so that they're ahead as much as possible. And that was mainly the problem in MoP with having no daily quest cap. If you were one of the motivated players who had to get everything done for their guild so that they could be at their top game, they would have to do I believe about 50 daily quests per day, which is just insane. So I think, for example, a 25 dailies cap would be great to just help protect the player from themselves. Do I hate dailies? Oh, with a passion. But they do serve a purpose, and mainly also for content, for the more casual player who doesn't raid, although we have LFR now, so we have that as well for the more casual player. But in general, I think having, for example, one weekly quest or two to help quickly increase, for example, your Valor points, so you have to do less daily quests per week to increase your Valor points, would also be great to just have more diverse content for the player to do, while they don't have to do an overabundance of one typical type of content, such as daily quests.
Well, I see a thin red line between what to limit in terms of the things that you can do and the content itself that is being released or it's about to be released. So I see there's a difference between the idea of dailies is something that you always have there to do to obtain something. Obviously, at the beginning of an expansion, then maybe that could be considered, but not limited again. But like a daily, like dailies, what would you obtain with dailies, which is valor points, for instance, or can be a reputation, or so on and so forth. So I see a distinction between minimizing what can be done within a content or as they release a content, instead of limiting the cap of what you obtain with the dailies that you can do. So I still think that limiting the cap of dailies is something that shouldn't exist. Well, and then if we're talking about content that is about to be released and what can be explored and really touched as soon as they release, then that's arguably, in my opinion.
Okay, so what you were suggesting is to have less of benefit from doing the daily quests, because we had, as well as reputation, as well as valor points, as well as lesser charms of good fortune, all coming from daily quests. So you had a lot to gain from doing all the daily quests. So is that kind of what you're saying? To limit the reward you get from doing daily quests?
Silence. I think I can jump in here for a moment,
Sure.
and while Mel gets back. I think that's what he's saying as well, and I agree with that as well. It's just it's like with the 25-man raiding guild, with the raiding. It's the way that you use them and what you get from them that players will actually do them. I think it's like you said, there was a lot to be gained from doing insane amounts of daily quests with Mr. Pandaria, but but I think that the choice should be made by the players if they want or should do them, but I think that the problem should be tackled at what do you gain. Maybe I'm still against a cap because people should think for themselves, even though if you want to protect them, that's up to themselves. People are old and wise enough, I hope, for the game, even though some people aren't, to choose for themselves, especially if you're in a hardcore raiding guild, which often have a certain age restriction. Then again, it's still. I get what you're saying, that people should that they should be protected from themselves, because, like I said, I really didn't want to do dailies, but I still did them because it was needed at the time. So I get what you're trying to say, but I think that choice is for the players, for the customers, for the people, and not for the company. It's I'm not sure why they had the cap at first, but that was still from back in the day when daily quests were still coming up, from the Burning Crusade. I think they started there first, but then again, the dailies that you had back then were also very rewarding in their own sense. You didn't always have to do them for raids, but I mean, like the Nether Drake quests, the dailies there, they are still one of my fondest memories of pure quest chaining, because of not just the quest itself, which were awesome, but the rewards that you could get, because they are still some awesome looking mounts. And that's the problem nowadays. You don't have those kinds of things anymore. Of course you have, well, if you do insane amounts of quests, you have an achievement probably that'll give you, this time was the Patera Kite, I think you got from dailies, or that was another achievement, I'm not sure, but you could get some stuff like that. But I think that it just needs to be more rewarding on different levels, and not just hardcore raiding in general. I think there needs to be more a general spread for them.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I was here. I just didn't have my mic unmuted.
okay, well, go ahead, Neil.
Again, dailies. I mean, it's logical. It's a good part of the game. I think that when dailies were first invented, it was really good way to still keep the players really engaged within the game and find things to do in their own way, and when to best use that time. Because then again, let's maintain the focus on the fact that dailies require time. So why should we have someone else tell us what to do with our time, since we already do all the dailies? And I mean, what if exactly that's when I want to do the dailies? It doesn't seem right to me, the concept of capping or limiting anything. And the dailies again should be created and made available for you to experience the fun of doing dailies, or achieve it, or prioritizing the goals, what you want to do. And again, taking LJ's example on the raiding, the grinding on the Netherwing faction for the Netherwing mount. That was extremely fun to do, and I would go back to doing them again because they were so varied and they were so fun. I mean, your character, as you reach a certain level, and as you go deep within the quest chain, your character, as you enter the zone, automatically transforms into an orc. Come on, that's just awesome. You don't see nothing similar to that nowadays. And those were the kind of ideas that just made questing so much fun, and it didn't actually feel like grinding at all. So again, I think that limiting something is not positive in any sense. And I think that it actually has more of a downside, even towards competitive rating, than the overall, helping the players, saving players from themselves. I think that's one silly kind of idea for Blizzard to pretend to be doing that, because that's, I don't see that.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back to the subject of the general content in World of Warcraft in a later podcast, possibly next week. But for now, we'll leave it at this. I think it's a good time to go to a quick commercial break. I did hear Skype somewhere on the background, some beeping, so we'll get that sorted as well. So when we come back, we'll go to our discussion point of the week, casualization. Has Blizzard done well to go this far with casualizing the game? Or should they go a bit back towards some more hardcore type content? Hardcore is perhaps a bad word. Let's say more challenging content. So we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor. This show is sponsored by the Numragon Support Group.
Have you been feeling down, looking green, irregularly aggressive? Then you might be affected by leftover radiation. Contact us today to come into contact with fellow victims in our Numragon support group.
Hi, I'm Tinker Castpipe. I felt really bad for wanting to kill level 25 adventurers, but after a few sessions with the Numragon support group, I knew it was alright to just let myself go.
Call 1-800-RADIATION now. Effectiveness may vary per pronoun.
And welcome back to WoW Weekly. Man, that was a great commercial, wasn't it? I thought it was brilliant.
I don't know.
Enjoyed it. I'm gonna buy 2 of them.
Well, I'm glad. Our sponsor really is important. Let's move on. So, the second part of our podcast is called the discussion points. And this week we're going to be talking about the casualization within World of Warcraft. This week, in one of the interviews, Tom Chilton talked a bit about casualization, and he said that Mists of Pandaria was the first push to appeal to more casual players, and it was very successful. If they had not done so, the game would be in a bad shape. The audience has changed since vanilla, so players wanting the game to stay the same wouldn't have been the same fun gameplay if it did. So, another thing that was said was that Mists of Pandaria has had a lack of new experiences for the hardcore audience, which is something that will be focused on in the future. Greg Street said that, so again, a bit of a conflict, but not completely, because the casualization is something they focused on, and they said that otherwise the game wouldn't have been as fun. But now they do want to go back to more content for hardcore audience. So, what are your thoughts on this? Because this seems kind of conflicting. What do you think about the casualization in and of itself, Milne?
I mean, I have always praised Blizzard for being a very, very serious company and be like game makers instead of convenience makers. In casualization, it does sound more of something. It can mean anything but what I really think of Blizzard in the first instance. Casualization may be to make it more accessible to others, but it is a direct conflict if what we want to have in a game is the seriousness of the series, maybe too strong a word, but to have a feeling that the time that we spend on a game is to achieve something big, is to achieve something more than the normal average player achieves. So casualization Yeah, I would want to walk away from that terminology as strong as I could.
Okay, LJ?
Yeah, I agree. It's casualization. I also just I agree with what I think it was Tom Chilton what he said. That without casualization, the game would be in a very bad place. Well, judging by the subscriptions, it is in a bad place and it's getting worse. Which I think maybe directly or indirectly is due to casualization. They, I think, took it a bit too far. And like he said, Mr. Panera was the first push to appeal to more casual players. I think they already tried to do that a little bit with Cataclysm, with the introduction of looking for raids and such. I think, of course, they probably generated a lot of revenue out of that as well by the boom of more subscriptions, but now it was back to 7.7, I believe you said it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's. I think it's a bit hypocrite to say something like that while you're actually disincentivizing the hardcore. I always say hardcore, but like the core base of people that have had a subscription running for multiple years now, which all three of us have had. It's just also what Milne says. The term casualization is also yeah. It's too hard to pin down to be honest. I mean, you can call everything casual, but it's just I think they should step down from it and indeed go more for the core base fans and see if they can keep those on, because I think they've also lost a lot of core people just because they have left them out in the dark due to casualization.
Okay, well, when I think of casualization, one of the things I think about is LFR and the looking for dungeon tools and how, well, when we talk about loot, I know Millen thinks loot should be less important, but it's created an atmosphere of expectancy where the players, including the casual players, feel entitled to all the loot and not just seeing the content, but having to have all the gear, etc., because it has become easier to get all of that.
Yeah, I agree on that. Just looking at an average, looking for raid, I mean, the atmosphere in those raids are unbearable because everybody just wants to get it done with. Everybody is. It's like a basic Call of Duty match. Everybody is doing it with everybody else's mom, and it is just a horrible atmosphere because everybody wants to just get it done. They're not interested in the raid. They want the loot. They want the purple eye level 502 at the moment stuff, and then get it over with, so they can go on to the same raid in a different difficulty to get higher item level purple shit. I mean, it's just. Like I said before, it's about the numbers and not about the raid anymore.
Yeah, I think all in all, it's fine that players see all the content. I think that's good. They should see all the content, but if it's on an easier level, they shouldn't necessarily get the same type of reward. Of course, it's lower item level, but it's still epics. As I've mentioned before, epic, or you have rather. Epics aren't epic anymore, and the whole worth of items has kind of vanished. Now, do I think that things should be changed? Yes, because what I'm sad about, and even though I kind of have the mentality as well now that people suck, the whole server tight-knit community feeling has vanished. And I think the first step of going back towards that is getting the mindset off of loot and more to the gameplay and away from the entitlement attitude. If we get that out of the game, I think we will already be a lot better off. People will be more friendly to each other and will want to do stuff together. What do you think, Milne?
Yeah, like I said previously, one of the main things that I think Blizzard should do, it's really take the mindset or the idea so heavily around looting and gear and only raiding because of what you can get to improve your character. I think that you should make more about the raid, more about the necessity of grouping up to do what's necessary for the raid, for the content, for the game, to enjoy the game, and not limit on the gear itself. I think it's just wrong concept. And again, I mentioned that example of one of my first experiences of really striving for something to me that was really difficult to achieve was just crafting a robe on my warlock, and which was, funnily enough, one of the best items that I needed at the time. It was probably compared to the high-end raiding kind of drops at the time. So that's the kind of thing that it's making it simpler to and making it simple to everyone, not just the individual player, but even to the raid and to the raid leaders and to the officers and people that because it's a hard work to put a 25 men or even 10 men raid together. So how about to make it more fun for everyone and not make like a huge gathering of decision makers to say, okay, so who should we really give this loot to? Should we prioritize the tank? Should we prioritize the healer? Should we prioritize the DPS? And how about just let everyone put like a 50% of effort towards themselves to improve the overall guild group, to guild or a raid group. I think that just get the mindset of the loot based raids into just fun based raids.
Okay, well, going on to the second part of the comments, namely Greg Street's or Ghost Crawler's statement that Mists of Pandaria has been lacking new experience for the hardcore audience. I think the only experience they added was the challenge modes, and I think they're an abomination, to put it simply. I think that the speed runs, 11, 13 minutes, whatever, that doesn't really show skill. It's just about getting the right mob quickly there, then a crowd control there quickly. Oh shit, you missed. We better reset. The constant resetting just to get the gold medal isn't exactly what I would call skill. I'd much rather prefer the heroics from the start of Cataclysm, or even more, I'd prefer the heroics from way back in the Burning Crusade, where you really have to spend perhaps an hour or an hour and a half in a 5-man heroic dungeon where you have to coordinate, where you can take your time and properly deal with mechanics, make them very hard. Now, obviously, having all heroics like that in whatever the next expansion is going to be will not happen, because people will want the quick heroic dungeons to get valor points or whatever it is that we'll have to collect from heroic dungeons in the next next expansion. What I would suggest is have some, heroic dungeons as we have now, and some of a new type of heroic dungeon. I won't call them challenge modes, but they're really other dungeons where you can only go to with a full pre-made group, which are on the level of the Burning Crusade heroics, the harder ones, and then have the reward, not gear, because obviously then people will start complaining, but do vanity items. Stuff like pets, mounts, tabards, the title, whatever. Give the more hardcore, or it's such a bad word, but the more the crowd that wants a more challenging content, give them that type of dungeon, because that could be a lot of fun. Not the stressed out, quick challenge modes that we have now. I think that's one type of content they should add, which would be a lot more fun than the challenge modes that we have now are.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I don't have anything much more to add. I totally
Okay.
agree. It's challenge mode. They barely added even anything for real core raiders. Just the challenge mode, which I've never liked speedruns in any game whatsoever. So no, I totally agree with you for once.
Well, that's great. Does either of you have anything else to say on new hardcore content or the casualization?
Not. I think that one of the main topics or issues that the game has nowadays is just that it's trying to appeal for everyone. And I mean, I think that Blizzard, compared to any other gaming company, has done remarkably well, even in striving to do that and accomplishing actually. Because I think even though maybe they have screwed up for the hardcore players, but they certainly have made a huge appeal for the new gamers, for new people, introducing the concept of RPGs and MMOs. I think that they have done an exceedingly good job at it. But you cannot make everyone happy, and the sooner they start to go back and praise those who are the most faithful to the game, I think that's when probably things will start to go back a little bit better, just like it was at the beginning, and were back in the times where the success really took off.
Yeah, I agree. Blizzard is one of those companies that it gets a lot of heat. Everybody complains about it, but eventually 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 100 times maybe, they get the job done pretty damn well. And it's been around for how many years now? 8, 9?
We're heading towards the 10th year anniversary.
10th year, Jesus. That's what I mean. I mean, not a lot of games, MMOs, whatever, can say that. And even though everybody might complain about it, they really are doing a good job trying to stay with the current current process of games and people and everything. So it's still one of my favorite companies of all time. But it's just they do a lot wrong, but they do a lot wrong as well. A lot wrong and a lot right as well. Sorry about that. But yeah, that I'm still looking forward to the next expansion. I'm still going to buy it. I'm still going to play it. So we all are probably. It's just, of course, some things can go better, and we just hope they will go better.
Okay, I think that's a great thought to finish this first episode on. Thanks very much to everyone listening for listening to our podcast. Please comment in the comment section what you think went right. What do you think we can improve on? Or types of segments you would like to hear us discuss about. And subscribe, of course. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share the podcast with your friends so that they can also listen to us. Thanks to our hosts, our guests today. Yeah, your hosts, really, not just guests. So, thank you, Mil. I hope you enjoyed this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, hope to be here again next time.
Okay, great. And LJ, of course, thank you.
No problem. Hope to be here next time.
And, well, I'm Mezzy. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Probably next week.